and I took Lake City by quote-unquote $1 billion in the play-in game.
On the North Idaho Prepcast, we're all about that North Idaho life.
Man, you talk about Wallace and what they've been able to do this year. Quietly just being, the steady stalwart up north in District 1. They've been dominant.
From Bonners Ferry all the way down to Grangeville, we tackle the biggest stories in North Idaho sports.
This Genesee team is for real. We know we saw it last year. They're, I think in the driver's seat to repeat.
It's the North Idaho Prepcast with Ryan Scaggs.
Hey, welcome to the North Idaho Prepcast here on IdahoSports.com. I'm Ryan Scaggs. Thanks for joining me. And then this week, we've got a special guest because Brandon is a little under the weather. So we brought in our sports beat writer for the Bonner County Daily Bee and stat critic extraordinaire, Mr. Max Oswald. So I want to welcome Max to the show. Max, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Just got the newspaper inside, took a look at the All-League honors in there, and ready to check out the All-North Idaho honors today.
Yeah, we'll see how they compare. It's been a busy last, 3 weeks with girls basketball state tournament, state wrestling, and then the boys basketball state tournament this last weekend. We've been off the air for a while. So it's good to be back and good to have you finally on the show with us. We've been talking about it for a while, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally got my head a little bit above water now that everything's over, but we're already starting spring sports preview. So this will be about my last thing regarding winter sports. So excited.
Yeah. Spring sports are getting under the way. I think we've got games coming up already this week, don't we?
Today is actually Timberlake versus Lakeland baseball, believe it or not.
So, yeah, it's hurry up and wait. It happened. It's already here. Spring sports have started. And but what an awesome winter we had with our area teams, and they're going to be well represented. So today is kind of a special show. We're going to break down our all North Idaho teams. We'll go over the all-state tournament teams as well for both girls and boys and talk about some of the notable finishes of the teams that we had at state the last 3 weeks, and also talk about wrestling too. So, and we always do start off our show talking about wrestling. So that's where we will start, is our all North Idaho wrestling team. And I'll give a shout out to the Post Falls Trojans, 6A state champs. An awesome job by the Post Falls group down there inside the ICCU Dome at Idaho State University, winning the 6A state championship. So congratulations to the Trojans, a well-deserved state championship. I don't know if you have any remarks on that. Anything stick out to you from state? I know that you cover the teams in District 1 pretty heavily, and especially Sandpoint boys and girls. And so anything stand out to you, and Priest River for that matter?
Yeah, it was really fun. I actually watched most of the matches online, so I matched everything up with track wrestling, saw what mats were up next, went on NFHS, went to the mats, trying to make it as I'm there as in person almost as possible, trying to, take everything into consideration. And it was fun keeping up with. What really stood out to me, of course, was Sandpoint boys finishing 5th and then the girls 7th. It's been a while since the boys have been, I believe 2008 is the last time they were in the top 5. And then girls in 7th for Sandpoint is the top finish in school history. So pretty awesome to see Bulldog wrestling going in the right direction.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So let's jump right into our teams. We'll start with the 6A, 5A group, kind of split these up. We'll have 3 different teams at 6A. And just when somebody pops up of note, feel free to speak out. Starting at 98 pounds. I didn't divide it this year into first team, second team, third team. I use the top 3 at each weight class. And this, of course, is my opinion going based off state finishes and head-to-head matches from this season. So Zach Teal from Lakeland, Tristan Mendenhall of Post Falls, and Ty Wood at Sandpoint at 98 pounds. And then Ty is a great kid too. That's somebody that you watch quite a bit. We saw him actually beat Zach in that battle for the paddle duel.
Yeah, and I'd watch out for him next year. Just a freshman along with his brother there. Zach will get to him at 120. There'll be 2 names you hear a lot over the next couple of years.
Absolutely. 106 pounds, Gage Lofton from Post Falls, Noah Larson from Coeur d'Alene, Caleb Adams from Lakeland. Go to 113 pounds, our first state champion, Matthew Hamilton of Post Falls. Riker Allen of Post Falls and Rocco White of Coeur d'Alene, they're all state finishers at 113 pounds. Phenomenal seasons for all three of those gentlemen. At 120 pounds, we got Carson Leonard of Lakeland, a state champion at 120. Zach Wood, who you just talked about, and then Loga Loiza of Post Falls. That's a great trio. I mean, you talk about hammers right there. That's a pretty heavy list right there at 120.
Yeah, absolutely. Was able to watch Carson and Zach wrestle quite a bit this year, and I know Zach will be looking to get some revenge next year. But Carson, man, he's tough to beat, having won, I believe, 113 pounds a year prior, state that is, and then this year at 120, pretty legit.
Yeah, so two-time state champ. I mean, he's going to be vying for another one next year. I mean, hopefully you see those guys finally split weight classes. Maybe you'll see Zach on top of the podium at state next year. 126-pound Sawyer Sage of Post Falls, Jaron Knopp of Lakeland, and Carter Newby of Coeur d'Alene. We'll go to 132, Brandon Felix of Post Falls, Cohen Roberts from Lewiston, and Jace Hendren from Lewiston. A pair of Bengals there at 132 pounds, both finishing on the podium at state. So a great job by those gentlemen. Then 138 pounds, Ryder Seguin of Post Falls. I forgot the E in there, so I apologize. That's a typo. My fault. Wyatt Laney of Lewiston and Jordan Shield of Coeur d'Alene. So that's a great list there at 138 pounds. Ryder ended up losing in the state championship match. He was looking for a podium finish on top this year again for Post Falls. Just fell just short as a runner-up, but still a phenomenal season from him. So let's go to the next page, the next weight class. Producer, Brandon. He's behind the scenes today. 144 pounds, Gunnar Whitlock of Lewiston, Cole Cooper from Lakeland, and Logan Bradley of Coeur d'Alene. And then 150 pounds, another state champ, Colton Tucker from Coeur d'Alene, Tanner Piper of Post Falls, and Mason Falling of Lewiston. Go to 157 pounds, Gabe Larson from Coeur d'Alene, Kyle Miller from Post Falls, and Caleb Hammer from Lakeland. State champion at 165 pounds, Brock Armstrong of Coeur d'Alene, Damian Hamilton of Post Falls, and Thayer Sabatke of Lakeland. Anyone stand out from those weight classes to you?
Yeah, I just saw Mason Falling of Lewiston was named the Trib Athlete of the Week for
That's
his
awesome.
For his performance at districts as well. I believe he had a big upset to get to state. So congrats to him. Just saw that, and I've heard a lot of those names. I've heard Caleb Hammer, of course, and Thayer Sabatke. Actually, I have a really good photo of Thayer Sabatke, so if anyone's listening that knows him, I can get you that photo. He's
That's
pretty good
awesome.
wrestler.
That's great. 175 pounds, Nathan Booth of Post Falls. James Green, our first bear from Moscow on the list at 175 pounds, and Trey Smith from Post Falls. And we got another state. This one here is the absolute hammer list of hammer lists. You got Seth Martin from Post Falls, a state champion, Jordan Tyler of Sandpoint, a state champion, and Bryce Cuthbert from Lewiston, who was a podium finisher at state at 5A as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to understate what Jordan really did this year. And I mean, that's a kid that's motivated, and when it's been on, Prepcasts and Matt Chats before, it's been said, but he's really has a lot of potential left. And I think wherever he ends up wrestling next year, it's gonna be a big pickup for that coach. And yeah, getting third as a sophomore, second as a junior, and then able to get revenge on Prester Sonner Craney of Minico in this year's state championship match. I mean, congrats to Jordan. Finished the season 45-4. I believe 3 of those losses are to Seth, and I believe who was a state champion at 6A, right? That's right. And then his only other loss was to the 4A state champion in Washington, Asa Knudsen of Hanford. So he only lost to state champions this year. That's pretty crazy.
I mean, if you're going to lose, that's who you want to lose to, right? That's a phenomenal cap to a career for Jordan Tyler. And, of course, he makes our list at 190 pounds. 215, another good weight class. I mean, Garrett Leonard, a state champion, 6A state champ for Lake City. Jackson Holman from Sandpoint makes the list. And Kendall Sage from Post Falls rounds out 215 pounds. You know quite a bit about Jackson as well. Probably the partner in the room with Jordan Tyler, which would say a lot about his success that he had this year too, being able to have a good practice partner in the room.
Yeah, and Jackson did not place last year, and then he comes in this year as a junior and picks up second. He was a fourth seed, so he was seeded pretty high. So it's to be expected with a kid like Jackson. I always hear great things about him from the community, and he's going to be big next year as a senior. I think he's going to be, one of your main leaders on this Bulldog team. Congrats to him,
Yeah,
and
no,
he really almost had that state championship match too.
yeah.
So.
I mean, that's a kid that's going to go into next year probably starting our rankings number one at 5A, whatever weight class he ends up being, if it's 215 or 285 next year. He's going to be right at the top of the list. And let's go to our heavyweight, our last weight class on the list, Brandon. And that is Xander Scholes of Post Falls, Sebastian Mossman of Lake City, and Gavin Walters of Sandpoint. Gavin ended up placing at state. That is a huge bright spot, in my opinion.
It is, I don't know if it was exactly expected that Gavin was going to place. I saw he won his first round matchup by a 3-2 decision. I'm not sure exactly what seed he was, but that was a huge upset. That kid ended up getting up. The kid that he beat ended up getting third, I think. Like he won every single match after that, and wow, I mean, for Gavin to pull that off, pretty remarkable. I know he's probably upset with how he performed at districts. Comes back and medals at state. I mean, that's huge for Gavin. Really great kid as well. So
Yeah, and we talk about Sandpoint getting a top 5 finish. I mean, you can attribute it to the last 3 weight classes, really carrying that program towards a top 5 finish. I mean, to finish in the top 5 at state for any team is a great accomplishment, and hats off. And then, of course, we have our state champion team, Post Falls, we talked about right at the start, getting that 6A state title. The first for Coach Zender as the head coach, and that's a huge lift for that program. The team that's been really close, and it seems like Meridian's been kind of the fly in the ointment for the Trojans, and they're able to go down and, I mean, you talk about what they were able to accomplish in the state tournament. I don't know if you were tracking 6A as much as 5A, but some of the matches they won, I mean, it was those placing matches, and I call them the blood rounds, going in to the 5, 6, 3, 4 matches. That's where their state championship was won. The guys that were underseeded overperformed and performed well, and that's what clinched that title for the Trojans.
yeah, I had read about how many points they scored in the Coeur d'Alene Press, first since highest total since 2017, maybe something like that, and yeah, they deserved it. They deserved it. They fought hard, just like you said, and all those on the backside.
I mean, they channeled their inner Spider-Man. If you're following the team in all their photos and everything else, they were giving the old Spidey Man like web sling. It was pretty cool. And everybody always goes with crazy hairdos going down the state and stuff like that. And that Trojan group just does a great job, carries themselves the right way, and represents their school extremely well. So congratulations to the Post Falls Trojans, and congratulations to all of our 6A and 5A, all North Idaho wrestling team members. So let's jump in to the next group. It's going to be our 4A to 1A. Kind of smashed all these guys together just because of representation. We only had 2 wrestlers at 98 pounds in the region. Both the guys ended up on the list. Colton Diavanzo of Timberlake and Levi Holbrook from Priest River. They're on your all North Idaho team at 98 pounds. At 106, Wyatt Carey of Timberlake, Johnny Stovern of Kellogg, and Kevin Watson of Kellogg around 106 pounds. They go to 113 pounds. Colton Story, state champion at 113 for the Wildcats. Peter Fabi of Clearwater Valley and Aiden Figueroa of Kellogg finding themselves on the list. We'll go to 120 pounds. Carson Hinkleman of Kellogg. Our first Kootenai wrestler, Ashton Lewis of Kootenai, is on the list, and Liam Pettit of Priest River. Anyone stand out? Any interesting stories from you on any of those guys?
That Ashton Lewis one is pretty cool. I'm always looking at track wrestling, and I'm like, oh, Kootenai's scoring some points, and I actually never knew who it was until right now. So congrats to Ashton Lewis, and of course Liam Pettit right under him, just a sophomore. He had close to 30 wins this year, so I know he's one to watch out for the next 2 years for sure.
Yeah, so going back to the list, 126 pounds, a Kendrick Tiger, Ian Schwecke. He practiced with Moscow and wrestled with them in the dual meets most of the year, but he had to compete for Kendrick at state in the 3A, 2A, 1A tournament. He found himself on the podium, I believe a 3rd place finish for him. Paul Sundstrom of Lakeland is on the list, and Orion Grimes from Priest River. At 132 pounds, Kelby Harvey of St. Mary's, Wyatt Story of Kellogg, and Trevin Bush of Kellogg. At 138 pounds, Hunter Gamble, the Orfino Maniac, on the list. Tanner Labrum of Kamei, and Strider Lyerman of Timberlake rounding out the list. Anyone stand out to you? Anything of note? I know you followed Orion Grimes quite a bit this year.
Yeah, he didn't finish how he wanted to at state, I'm sure, but man, he's had a heck of a career at Priest River, and he's always been kind of one of those wrestlers I know to look out for when I'm typing up the results and recaps.
It's
Congrats
awesome.
to him on a great career, and I see Strider Learman there at 138. He actually goes to Bonners Ferry. He's a junior, and he had a great year, and
That's
another
my
one
fault, and
next year.
I apologize putting the Badger as a Timberlake Tiger. That's my fault. I was running through the seed lines at state, and either that was a misprint or that's an absolute bonehead move on my part. So I apologize to Strider.
He's a real good kid for sure.
So let's go to the next list, 144 pounds and so on. Brandon, if we can go to the next page. So this one, I know you know a ton about this kid, and he is an absolute stud. Cole McLamtag of Priest River, followed by Jarrett Brebner and Tanner Williams of Kellogg. 150 pounds, Brady Vergobi of Kellogg, Chris Schmidt of Timberlake, and Jake Fabi of Clearwater Valley. 157 pounders, Zach David of St. Mary's, William Yearout of Potlatch, and Connor Christensen of Clearwater Valley. Let's talk about Colm real quick, and you can break down, because I know you followed him a ton.
Yeah, Colm, four-time district champion, and then he goes back-to-back at state. I think he also placed fifth his freshman year. He really his junior senior years were huge. He was 52-5 this year, I believe, and his brother Caden wrestling at North Idaho College. I'm interested to see if Colm will be going somewhere next year. And yeah, kind of impressive what he did. His opponent, Stellar 2 of Westside, he had lost to at the Kuskia duels at Clearwater Valley. He got pinned by him. So he comes back in the state championship match and wins by 4-3 decision, gets a 2-point reversal in that third period to clinch it. Pretty great.
So we'll go through some comments online, both on Facebook and Twitter. First from Facebook, Travis Tyler said that he was not seeded. I believe he was talking about the heavyweight from Sandpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Was not seeded, ended up placing at state, which is awesome. And then Mike Scholes says, I was pleasantly surprised by Trujillo of Coeur d'Alene. Found out he was only going to state on Wednesday before state tournament. Came one match from placing. He had been a number 2 up until the North Idaho Rumble, when the number 1 wrestler for the Vikings ended up getting hurt. Yeah, there's some guys on that list that didn't end up on the list. There's some phenomenal stories, and we obviously we can only choose the top 3, but just awesome to see what some of these guys were able to do. And we did have some guys that qualified for state that didn't wrestle at state for various reasons, whether it injury or other things too. But I mean, that stuff happens. So you got to be ready to go. And Trujillo of Coeur d'Alene being able to go to state, finding out the day before, the day the bus is leaving, essentially, is when he gets the call. It's like, hey, grab your gear, we're going. That's pretty awesome to see that he was just a match shy from the placing rounds.
Yeah, very cool story there. Also, just remembered something about Colm is want to mention. And I said this on the matchup, but he does have the most pins, wins, and takedowns in Priest River High history. And I don't have the exact numbers right now, but I know he has over 150 wins. So
that's an unbelievable career, and feather in the cap for him getting a state championship, going back-to-back junior and senior seasons. I mean, he had a great year this year too. You look at his finishes at Tri-State and other tournaments, North Idaho Rumble as well. There was a number of tournaments he won this year. So, I mean, that Letterman jacket's probably pretty full of medals, I would say, by the end of his senior season.
Absolutely.
So let's go to 165 pounds. Aiden Yearout of St. Mary's. He was a state champ at 165 for the Lumberjacks. Joseph Torr of Timberlake. Carson Yearout of Potlatch. 175 pounds. Jonathan Hansen of Timberlake. Zach Soten of St. Mary's, and Andrew Lewis of Kellogg. 190 pounds, Parker Farmer from Grangeville, AJ Peak from Kellogg, and Gunnar Eversole of Priest River, rounding out that list. Anyone of note for you?
Yeah, I was watching the Idaho-Montana basketball game yesterday, and I was watching Titus Yearout, and I'm always wondering, are they related to any of these Yearouts from St. Mary's and Potlatch? I was wondering if you knew that or not.
Yeah, I don't know. We could probably find that out if somebody's watching on the Prepcast and you want to throw that in the comments. Let us know because I would be interested as well. Let's go back to a 215-pound list. Brandon? Maybe. There we go. So 215 pounds, Darian Ratzlaff of Priest River, Briley Arnett of Timberlake, and Lane Morris from Lakeside. Our Knight shows up on the list, getting some points for the Knights at state. And then 285 pounds, Taylor Dodd from Bonners Ferry, Caleb Groh from Priest River, and Kyle Van Vliet from Kellogg, rounding out our 4A through 1A all North Idaho wrestling team. Bonners Ferry, didn't have a ton of guys on the list this year. Just I think 2 or 3 guys. They'll be represented on the girls list as well. You'll see here in just a minute. But Priest River, pretty decent representation from the Spartans this year, and a great program that's you could definitely say is on the up and up.
Yeah, it's again another wrestler. It's hard to understate what they really did this year at state. But Darian, he's seeded 9th. So do you call that unseeded if they're 9th?
Yeah, I mean, I would say anything below 6 is unseeded in my opinion, but yeah.
So yeah, okay. So he ends up, winning his first match, and then I think he fell to the eventual state champion in the second round. Then he comes back and wins 4 straight consolation matches, including being someone he lost to at districts. I beat that kid by a 7-2 decision. He pins the 2nd, the 5th, and the 6th seed to take 3rd. That's just a really impressive run, and had to make him Daily B Athlete of the Week. That just seemed really like a bizarre accomplishment.
No, it's phenomenal for him and well-deserved placement on our all North Idaho wrestling team. So let's go to the girls list, which I think is pretty darn good if you want to ask me. But rounding 100 pounds, Mackenzie Donefeld of Sandpoint, Kylie Calderon of Bonners Ferry at 100 pounds, 107 pounds, Kyra Cobb of Timberlake, Nevaeh Therian of Bonners Ferry, and Isabella Rice of Post Falls. We'll go to 114 pounds, Jolie Slider of Lewiston, a state champion, and Cooper Bugner of Lewiston, the other Bengal, pair of Bengals there at 114 pounds. Jolie gets a ton of notoriety and talk and well-deserved. I mean, she's a phenomenal wrestler for the Bengals and was able to, she got nipped at Raleigh Lane down in Southern Idaho this year and came back and just went on an absolute tear the rest of the season, ended up winning districts and finally getting her state championship. Anyone else stand out to you, any of the girl wrestlers there on that list?
Yeah, Nevaeh Therian, a junior at Bonners Ferry, she places 5th. Pretty incredible. I believe, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but she's won districts, I think, for the last 3 years. So she'll have a real good senior year next year, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be one of the favorites there in whatever weight class she ends up being at next year. Let's go to 120-pound state champion from Lake City, Alexis Johnson, and then Emma Garman from Sandpoint. There at 120 pounds. 126, we got Shelby Garden of Timberlake, Isabella Stark of Sandpoint, somebody that we got to watch at the Battle for the Paddle in one of those exhibition matches. She's a great wrestler. I would definitely say that. 132 pounds, Callie Brown of Post Falls, and Shelby Prather from Potlatch. Starting to see some of those small school wrestlers show up. That's the one thing I love about this girls tournament. It's an open classification. So it doesn't matter if you're at Rocky Mountain or if you're at, Lakeside. If you're good, you're going to get noticed and you're going to end up placing at state with the best of the best. So pretty awesome to see some of these folks show up. Valerie Johansson in the comment says, Izzy Stark placer as a sophomore, did not qualify last year to state placer this year. I mean, that's awesome to see that accomplishment from Izzy Stark.
Yeah, also had her as a Daily B athlete of the week once this season. She's a pin machine. That's what I'll say. She just a sophomore, and wow, she's gonna be good. She's been wrestling since 6 years old, so
that's awesome. So let's go to 138 pounds. Sophia Brown from Bonners Ferry, Jesse Rice from Clearwater Valley, and 145 pounds, Chloe Thomas of Post Falls, CL Satter of Deary, and Tegan Newsom from Sandpoint. I mean, that's one thing that you've noticed so far is that Sandpoint has been well represented on this list thus far, and you'll have a few more Bulldogs showing up on our all North Idaho girls wrestling team. Let's go to our next weight class, or next group of weight classes. 152 pounds, Haley McNeil from Potlatch, and Sophia Stewart from Post Falls. 165 pounds, Brooklyn Anderson of Coeur d'Alene, Sylvia Becker from Sandpoint, 185 pounds, Tierney Prather of Potlatch, Bria Miller of Lewiston, and then finally at 235, Lily Marty of Sandpoint, Cassie Voss from Post Falls, and Haley Cook from Priest River. That's rounding out our girls, all North Idaho wrestling team. One thing we talked about, Sandpoint, the 7th place finish at state. Just a phenomenal job from Coach Johansson's group. And, you can only see that program improving. And this is one thing, it's the fastest growing sport in the state of Idaho is girls wrestling, and you're only going to see it get better. I mean, I think we're just a matter of time to we're going to see one of the teams from the North break through and win a girls state championship.
Yeah, and it's been super fun to cover. I can't say I knew too much even about wrestling or girls wrestling for that matter since, 2 years ago when I'd started the job. And I've definitely come to know a lot more thanks to the great coaches at Sandpoint. Always, even historical knowledge of the local teams here. Able to talk to them and put together stuff has been really, really fun.
Absolutely. So congratulations to our all North Idaho boys and girls wrestling teams, 6A through 1A. We just ran through the gambit. So they will be posted on Twitter later today. I'll have those up on my X account. I keep saying Twitter. It's on X, but it's at N Idaho Game Night. I'll have those lists posted. So be sure to keep your eyes open for that. And I'll make sure and make the corrections for schools and all that fun stuff too. So nobody can get too mad at me and send me hate mail or whatever. But congratulations once again to all our wrestlers. So that concludes our wrestling side of the broadcast. And we're going to jump into talking about basketball. And thank you, Val. I appreciate that. We appreciate you as well. You do such a phenomenal job showcasing the sport. And just keep, I say it from one coach, former coach to a current coach as you, but that's one thing that wrestling does so well is you showcase your athletes extremely well. And just want to congratulate a great season for all the wrestlers around the area. It's the hardest sport there is. And not a lot of people see how much effort and blood, sweat, and everything and time and travel goes into behind the scenes. But 1 year I logged my miles as a coach, and it's ridiculous how much you travel and how much time you're away. And getting the kids to buy in is something that they'll never forget. And so hats off to all the coaches and all the athletes and parents and everybody else that's involved with your respective wrestling programs. You're definitely carrying the flag for the state of Idaho. And doing a great job. So this broadcast, of course, this North Idaho Prepcast, sponsored by Cornerstone Insurance Northwest, local independent agency located here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. For all your quote needs, whether it's home, auto, commercial, anything in between, give Ryan a call, 208-413-4536, or you can email Ryan at cornerstoneinsurancenw.com. So let's jump in to our all-state basketball tournament teams, because we're going to talk about state because we got a whole lot of stuff to talk about. We got a back-to-back state champion. We've got upsets and everything else. So let's dive right in to our 2025 state North Idaho boys and girls all-state teams. These are players that made the all-state teams voted by our IdahoSports.com broadcasters for the respective state tournaments. So let's first off jump right into 6A. Lake City the Timberwolf boys ended up runner-up at state. The Coeur d'Alene Viking girls were runners-up in the 6A classification. Great showings from both those teams, obviously falling short in the state championship game. Both losing to Owyhee. It's like we talk about, being snake bit. That's the program that, has been kind of the sticking point, the new school, the up-and-comer. Say what you want about recruiting or anything else. I don't know if I want to make too many people mad about saying that, but Owyhee's been, kind of the juggernaut in athletics in the state of Idaho, and a great showing this year. Lake City, ever since they took that loss to Post Falls, let's talk about the boys' side real quick. I mean, they went on an absolute tear, losing that first game to Post Falls, and then they just absolute ran the table, and it changed their season. So, let's start with the first team. Reese Strawn for the boys was a first-team all-state tournament team, followed by Josh Watson. And then for the girls, Coeur d'Alene, Brooksley Colvin was on the all-tournament team for the girls. The second team, Jordan Carlson from Lake City for the boys, and then Natalie Sempermosnik of Coeur d'Alene on the girls' side, and then the third team, Kaysen Miller from Lake City, ends up on the boys' team. You're going to see these names later on too in the Prepcast. But anything stand out to you? Any stories? Any players that just absolutely wowed you this year?
Reese Strawn is really a heck of a player, and I watched him versus Bonners Ferry and against Sandpoint as well. I mean, he just kind of does it all. I think he's extremely underrated player up here in North Idaho, and yeah, he's impressive. Brooksley Colvin, if you've ever seen her play, I mean, she is just super. All the names on this list, like Kaysen Miller's a great assist guy. I mean, he does a little bit of everything, and all the names here. I mean, if you haven't seen them play, you're definitely missing out.
Yeah, I would say Kaysen, he's a glue guy. I mean, you want to talk about the reason for success? He does a little bit of everything: defense, offense. He can score, but like you said, distributing the ball. I mean, he does a phenomenal job. Assist machine for the Lake City boys, and a big reason of that Lake City runner-up team. And then Natalie Semper-Mosnick is one of the players to me that stands out. She had a great tournament. And, a lot of the fanfare goes to Brooksley Colvin, and deservedly so. She's a phenomenal ball player. But Natalie she's going to be a player to watch for that Viking team. And she's a great player and had herself a heck of a state tournament. So congratulations to the 6A boys and girls that made the all-tournament teams. Let's go to 5A. Pretty quick list, but we'll talk about it. Royce Fisher from Lewiston made the third team, and then Jordan Tomko from Sandpoint. Lewiston and Sandpoint, they went 0-2 at state. As Brandon would say, 2 in barbecue, not the way you want it to go at state, but I think the Sandpoint team, being able to get to the state tournament, the run that they had in districts, Coach loves doing something with a young group. That's going to be a team that's going to be a force to watch in the next couple of years with the talent that's coming into that program that's already there. That's it. You cover them a ton. I wouldn't be surprised to see Coach Love in the next year or two with another top of the podium finish with the Sandpoint group.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same, especially with Jordan being just a sophomore, and then you have Brecken too, who we'll talk about later. I mean, both those players, they can really. I am super impressed with the way they finish through contact while driving the lane, and they can both shoot the three. Jordan's more of the go-to 3-point shooter, but I mean, they do. Kind of like we said with Kaysen Miller of Lake City, they do a little bit of everything, and of course, Royce Fisher there for Lewiston. I mean, he's quite the 3-point shooter. Really fun watching him this year.
Yeah, I mean, they shot, 38% on the season, and just sometimes it goes cold in that state. That was the unfortunate thing, is the shots weren't falling for the Bengals at state, and they ran into a Twin Falls team that, I mean, let's be real, they've had a really nice finish to their season, and the Bengals ended up, running into 2 really good teams on the back end of that tournament. So the Bengal boys, though, did get the district championship and had a great season. It's just not the finish at state that they wanted to have. So let's go to the classification that I think we can talk at length about. But 4A, it was a tournament that I covered for the boys, and there's much fanfare here. So let's start with our boys MVP, Asher Williams from Bonners Ferry. I think he got it 2 years in a row for the Badgers. The 6th man, Eli Blackmore from Bonners Ferry, and the girls' defensive MVP, Malia Miller from Timberlake. So our state champions, we did talk about that. Bonners Ferry went back-to-back state championships, and the 3rd place finish from Timberlake. Great finish for the Tigers this year. The first team, Thomas Bateman for Bonners Ferry for the boys. Thomas, I mean, Asher gets so much notoriety that not a ton of people realize. Thomas is a 1,000-point career scorer, and he averaged through the state tournament. I think he averaged nearly 18 points a game. Just a phenomenal young man, not just athlete, but he's a great person as well. And he was a lot to do with that Bonners Ferry State Championship team and the run that they were able to have. I mean, teams would try to double team Asher, and Thomas would go off. I mean, you'd have to stop doubling Asher because Thomas would hurt you so bad.
His court awareness is about the best I've seen up here in North Idaho, and his jump hook shot is pretty much unstoppable. When he gets within 5-6 feet down there, he does not miss often.
Nope.
He's super fun to watch. Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just shooting hoops the other day, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna try and recreate what Thomas is doing down here just to try and do it. The way he flicks it off the wrist, he's a phenomenal player.
Yeah,
really, he could have won. He could have won defensive MVP too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was a tough pick. So Going through second team, two of my favorite players, Brody Rice for Bonners Ferry and Diana Nelson for Timberlake. You talk about other people that could probably be on that defensive list. Brody was kind of the glue for that program, in my opinion, and the way he elevated his game. I know Lance Taylor and I had the tournament, and we talked about it nearly every game, is that Bonners Ferry, when they took that step up and elevated the program from that first loss in the state championship game when they were sophomores, he was the one that changed his game the most of any player, in my opinion. And, I don't think he got the notoriety that he deserves, but Brody Rice is a phenomenal leader on that team. And he's just got one of those guys, if you talk about the high engine, the high energy, high motor guys, that's Brody. And Diana, too. I mean, Diana's just flying all over the floor. And so for both those players to be a second team all tournament, great job for both those players and phenomenal seasons for both those programs. But Coach Williams' team going back to back, I mean, you can't say enough about that group.
Yeah, as you said with Brody, he's become quite the player. He had a couple of up and under finger roll finishes there in the state championship that were really cool in the second half. And he, I don't have complete numbers, but I'd say he was averaging close to 6-7 assists a game. And
Yep.
I know he had 15 in one game this year. So, running the offense, kudos to Brody for a great season. And
Yeah, in their first game, I think he had 11 assists in that first game.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't surprise. I mean, he was just a man amongst boys out there at times, and he took over that fourth quarter against Snake River in the state championship game.
Yeah, it was fun to see, and of course, you got the sixth man of the year, Eli Blackmore, up there, senior. He hit 3 3-pointers in the state championship. He was he's impressive.
And he drew Dawson Jackman as the defensive assignment most of that game, and really limited Jackman's ability to shoot the three ball. That was where Jackman had hurt so many teams all year, and he flat took that away from Snake River, and that was the way Bonners Ferry was able to pull away.
Yeah, Jackman's a great player for Snake River, and I believe he averaged about 4 steals a game during the tournament. So
yeah, he had one game where he had 7.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, he was a stud. So let's go to the 3A team. So first team, Addison Vanderwall of Grangeville. Second team, Autumn Long from Grangeville. And the third team, Nick Bonner from Orfino. And then losing in the third place game is the Grangeville Bulldogs. Thanks, Sam. We appreciate you from watching from your X account. So Grangeville losing in the third place game. There is no technical fourth place finish at state. They don't give a fourth place trophy. They give a consolation trophy. So I don't know if you would say Grangeville took fourth, or if you just say, hey, they one of 3 teams that end with a loss. But Grangeville nonetheless had a great season and well represented. And Orfino coming out of seemingly nowhere. I mean, they beat Priest River in the regular season. They go in the district tournament from one of the bottom seeds, and they end up winning the dang thing.
Yeah, pretty crazy what they did this year. And Nick Bonner's a great player. Is able to stat him when they played Priest River, and he always fills up that stat sheet. He's definitely well deserved there on the third team for him.
Yeah. So congratulations to our 3A players. Let's go to the 2A list. This is the most jam-packed list that we've got, and it's going to be pretty gaudy. So first we'll just go through the teams. Our 2A state champions, Kendrick Tigers, the boys upset Kamei in the state championship game. I guess you could call it an upset. They beat them in the district championship game. Just a phenomenal season from Kendrick and the turnaround that they had, and some of the schools that they beat. I mean, they would have finished on, near the top of the 5A ranks based on who they played. So state runners up, Prairie Pirates on the girls' side, Kamei on the boys' side. Losing in the third place game was Lapwai on the girls, Lakeside on the boys, and then losing in the consolation title game on the girls' side was the Lakeside Knights. Just great seasons from all those teams. And I think Lakeside Knights from the boys, I mean, drawing the short straw and having to play Kamei in the semifinals. If they were on the other side, they would have had to play Kendrick. So it's kind of like, what do you have to do? But that's a really fine group of players, and led by Tyson Charlie, which we'll see on this next list when we go to the next page for the all tournament teams. So defense, boys MVP, Raleigh Rotsit Center of Kendrick. Defensive MVPs, Sage Elbin for the girls, for Prairie, and David Klute for the boys. we're going to speed this up a little bit so we can go through all Idaho basketball teams. But first team players, I mean, it is a jam-packed list. Tyson Charlie from Lakeside, Hala Pion of Lakeside, Matthew Oatman from Kamiah, Cade Silflo from Kendrick, Skyland Picard on the girls' side for Lapwai, Lexi Schumacher and Kylie Schumacher from Prairie on the girls' first team for the state tournament. For the second team, Madden Bisbee from Lapwai, Jaden Crow for Kamiah on the boys, and Maddox Kirkland from Kendrick on the boys. And then the girls at third team, Kylie Wolf from Lakeside and Emerson George of Lapwai. And then for the third team for the boys, Hudson Kirkland of Kendrick. And I think our District 1 and 2 teams very well represented at state. And, you know, like we talked about, phenomenal finishes from all those players.
Yeah, Kylie Wolf was really fun to watch this year for Lakeside girls. And I know, I think she hit her 1,000-point milestone. And then Tyson Charlie, I just saw he was the all-league MVP of the Scenic Idaho Conference. You know, and I've watched Kamiah a couple of times. I watched the district championship versus Lagos, and man, that was they're a great team. And but of course Kendrick, really really good too. I got to watch them play Sandpoint this year. They had beat down in Lewiston.
Yeah, so great. I mean, that's a massive list, and we'll see them, all of them pretty much, except for a couple on our next list we've got for all North Idaho. So let's go to the 1A boys and girls all-state teams. First team, Chloe Greaser of Genesee for the girls, Monica Subert for Genesee on the second team. Third team, Miley Greaser of Genesee on the girls team. And then we've got a Aubrey Lux of Sandpoint, or sorry, not Sandpoint, what am I doing? For Nez Perce for the girls, I'm looking off to the side. I apologize. Grant Clemens from Court of Christ on the boys team, Ben Connolly from Court of Christ on the boys team, and Slater Kuther of Nez Perce on the boys team. And of course, our 1A state runner-up was the Genesee Bulldogs girls basketball team, losing in the state championship, but still a very, very good season for Genesee. And talk about paying dividends, going down a classification from 2A to 1A this year. I don't know if anybody has necessarily benefited, probably more than Genesee. So great seasons from all of those individuals. And Court of Christ was a really nice bright spot, you know, in the state tournament too. I think, you know, they realistically could have finished in that consolation game. The seeding hurt them, I think, the most. But that's going to be a nice group of players to watch, and going to be cool to see that team in their first year in the IHSAA 1A ranks, see what they can become and see if they start growing into a powerhouse.
Yeah, Ben Connolly, man, he can really score the ball. So they're fun.
30 points per game. I mean, good grief.
Yeah, it's fun to watch them play Clark Fork, and that'll be a good matchup for years to come.
Absolutely. So that's our all North Idaho. Well, our North Idaho finishers for the state tournaments and our team finishes, breaking down kind of the state tournament runs there. So certainly last but not least, we're going to go into our all North Idaho basketball teams. And we're going to start at the 6A, 5A. We're going to go largest to smallest for our all North Idaho. Let's go with the girls team first. So our all North Idaho girls basketball teams here on IdahoSports.com's North Idaho Prepcast. Our MVP, Brooksley Colvin of Coeur d'Alene, and our coach of the year, Stacy Boyd, a state runner-up finish for the Vikings. And I think no player deserves the MVP more than the dominating season that we saw from Brooksley Colvin.
Yeah, and I saw she has like tons of offers from all these places, and I 100% you know believe she's gonna go to one of the biggest schools in the country. Wherever she wants to go, she can go. She's
Big 10, Big 12. She's had Pac-12 offers. I mean, you talk about it's kind of like pick your poison. Where do you want to go? Let's go into our all North Idaho team. A couple of Bulldogs right there at the top. Brecken Meyer, Jordan Tomko, Landry Simon from Lakeland, Kelsey Carroll from Coeur d'Alene, Natalie Semper-Mosnick of Coeur d'Alene, Macy Murphy from Lake City, and Jessa Skinner from Moscow rounds out our 6A, 5A all North Idaho girls team. Anyone we haven't talked about that's on that list that kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, of course, Brecken Meyer. She had over 100 assists this year for Sandpoint. So she also led the team in scoring, and she was the MVP for the 5A IEL. So congrats to her. And we've already talked about Jordan, of course, great player. And Landry Simon, she just committed to University of Providence in Great Falls, Montana. Really good girls basketball in the NAIA. So congrats to Landry. She's a really good player.
Yeah, no, great post player for the Hawks, and finishes out a great career there at Lakeland. I mean, obviously, you only get one bid from a conference with, the teams that they have is kind of head scratching. Hopefully that changes next year where they get a bid and a half maybe, because I think we realistically could have seen Lakeland making the tournament. Really, let's be honest. Like, I think they could have won a play-in game. Sean Kane in the comments, one of our broadcasters down in East Idaho. He's on the East Idaho Prepcast. Coach Boyd was fun to work with at State. And we talked about that with Coeur d'Alene. Just, not just the players are a reflection of the coaching, and Stacy did a great job with that Coeur d'Alene group and beating the teams that they had to get to the state championship game. I mean, that was a nice run from the Vikings, and great job from them this year getting a second place finish. Let's go to the 4A, 3A team for all North Idaho for the girls. Our MVP, Madeline Green of Grangeville, Coach of the Year, Matt Miller from Timberlake. Madeline is a player that we watched, obviously, at Priest River when you were there hanging out with us, and she was flat dominant in that game. A great career. She's going to head to LCSC and play basketball there for the Warriors, and the NAIA ranks a great program as well. She's going to do just fine at the next level. I mean, the game that she's got with being able to shoot from the outside, play from the inside, she's she can play both ends of the floor too. Just a great job from Madeline. And then going to the team, Taryn Bateman from Bonners Ferry, somebody that doesn't get a ton of notoriety because Bonners Ferry is in the same conference as Timberlake. Taryn is a flat scorer. I mean, she can absolutely play. And Malia Miller from Timberlake, Karis Barger from Grangeville, Diana Nelson from Timberlake, Addison Vanderwall of Grangeville, and Aaliyah Jensen from Priest River, rounding out your 4A, 3A All North Idaho team. Thoughts, Max?
Yeah, so, Taryn averaged almost about 5 steals a game this year, and I can confirm I did stat some of their games myself. She does, in fact, average about 5 steals a game. So that's just crazy. And I think she had about 17 points a game, and she was dealing with some injuries this year, but that didn't really stop her. I mean, she's just a sophomore. She's got some really good years ahead of her, and I see Aaliyah Jensen on that list. Don't believe she made the All League, but so it's fun to see her here. Just a junior, she'll be the face of Priest River girls basketball next year for sure. Really good post player.
Yeah, no, I thought she had a great year and was kind of underrated, in my opinion. And that's why I put her on this list. I mean, I got to see her in person, and she was kind of the lone difference maker for that Spartans team when they played Grangeville. And, that's a group that was on the upswing. I mean, you've seen the program getting better. Obviously, the numbers need to improve as far as players turning out. I think they finished the year with only 7 in their varsity lineup. But I think that was mainly due to sickness and injury. But Priest River that conference can only get better, and so they're going to need that to improve in Grangeville. Graduating some of their players, and are they going to get pushed in the years to come by teams like Kellogg or teams like St. Mary's if they're going to start getting older and improving there, and it'd be nice to see Orfino get better in that conference because there's some potential there that 3A league could be pretty darn good.
Yeah, kind of up in the air on who's gonna be the team to beat next year. Gonna be really interesting, honestly.
Yeah, so let's go to our 2A, 1A All North Idaho team for the girls. Our MVP, Emma Krog of Cami, and Coach of the Year, he's a great man. Greg Hardy of Genesee, I think nobody's more deserving than him. Did a phenomenal job with that Bulldog group this year. But Emma Krog, let's talk about her real quick. I mean, she's a walking bucket. We watched her kind of single-handedly beat Lapwai at one point in the season. She averaged over 20 points per game. Just a phenomenal athlete there for the Cubs, and a great, just pure scorer. I think she's one of the better scorers in North Idaho, and a great player for that Cami team. And then on the team, we've got Lexi Schumacher of Prairie, Haley Anderson from Kendrick, Kylie Schumacher from Prairie, Kylie Wolf from Lakeside, Skyland Picard with Lapwai, Chloe Greaser of Genesee, Sage Elvin from Prairie, Madden Bisbee from Lapwai, and Monica Subert for the Bulldogs. You can kind of see the who's who of teams that made it to state. Well, why? It's because of those players right there that are on this list.
Yeah, a lot of these names I don't look at on a daily basis. Just a little bit too south for my coverage, but I have I have heard and seen all these names before, so they're big time.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about a number of them in the state tournament breakdown. So, congratulations to all of our All North Idaho players for making this list. Once again, this will be posted on X later today as well. But yeah, just awesome job and a great season from teams up north on the girls' side. But I think there's a lot of players that you could have an all snub list that would be probably just as good as some of these starting lineups as well. So let's go to our boys, all North Idaho teams. We'll start with the 6A, 5A, work our way down, kind of rounding this out. Hope you like the graphic I made here. It throws you back to like Tecmo basketball days, well, 8-bit. So our 6A, 5A boys, all North Idaho team, player of the year, Reese Strawn from Lake City, and our coach of the year, James Anderson for the Timberwolves. We talked about Reese, breaking down state tournament. Coach Anderson's done a great job with this team. And like we talked, I think really the hinge point, you look at Lake City's schedule, they played some of the best teams in the state of Oregon. They played some great teams from across the border in Washington. Those, took some lumps early, but I think that helped them on the back end and make a run through the state tournament to get that second place finish. We'll go to the all North Idaho team, Jordan Carlson from Lake City, Caden Simmons from Coeur d'Alene, Kason Miller from Lake City, Royce Fisher of Lewiston, Logan Roos from Sandpoint, Jackson Lisney of Post Falls, Jordan Walker from Lewiston, Braden Carroll for the Hawks from Lakeland, and then Tyson Izzo from Moscow. I know you were high on Logan Roos. We've seen him in person a few times. You've seen him a whole bunch. That's a game that translates. As far as size and the ability to shoot the basketball and play on anywhere on the floor.
Yeah, and actually today, Logan, Daily B Athlete of the Week in today's Bonner County Daily B. So he had a double-double against Lewiston and a double-double against Lakeland in that loser-out game. And of course, they had beat Lewiston 46-43 when he had that double-double. And he had a alley-oop from Knox Williams in one of those district tournament games. Man, I actually got out of my seat. I was like, you do not see this every day. And high school boys ball. Logan's only a junior, 6'6", 6'7". Man, he's gonna be really good next year. He's had some breakthrough last couple of years for sure.
Yeah, so there's his game definitely translates, especially with his size. Some players to watch out here: Jordan Carlson, youngster for Lake City. He's going to be fantastic in the next few years for that Timberwolves group. He's already good this year. Caden Simmons at Coeur d'Alene, Kason Miller, we talked about, Royce Fisher and Jordan Walker for the Bengals. Big reasons why that Lewiston team had the run to state that they did. And Jackson Lisney of Post Falls, a phenomenal player for the Trojans and who had a really, really good season. They were just, a hair shy of making it to state, losing in the play-in game to Timberline. And then Braden Carroll from Lakeland and Tyson Izzo of Moscow, both great players in the 5A ranks for both those teams. So let's go to the 4A, 3A team. As we got a comment in the section from Sean Kane. The slide makes me think of the corner three-pointer. If you know, you know. As a child born in 84, I played Tecmo basketball religiously, and I was all about the cherry pick. I would play the Bulls and just set Jordan on the other end, and you have him score 203 points a game.
So, that's where a glitch, you make it every time in the corner, right?
Yep. Yeah. There is a glitch in there. You shoot the corner three. It's always going in. Yeah. So our 4A, 3A boys, all North Idaho team, player of the year, once again, Asher Williams, our coach of the year, Nathan Williams from Bonners Ferry. Sorry, you go back to back and you average, nearly a double a game. Yeah, you're gonna be on the list. And Nathan Williams, winning back-to-back state champions, going 3 state championship games in a row. Missed a phenomenal job for that Bonners Ferry group and a great group of kids. They are just a phenomenal group of young men. Being able to watch how they carry themselves at the state, just a huge amount of respect from everyone. It was, talking to sports writers and broadcasters and everybody else, they took notice of just, the quiet confidence of that group of team and the group of kids that's there. Very noticeable. So let's go through our all North Idaho team. Tyler Engelson of Timberlake, Thomas Bateman of Bonners Ferry, Nate Stiefel from Priest River, Brody Rice from Bonners Ferry, Max Simpson, Timberlake, Peyton Hinthorn and Sulea Bubakari from Bonners Ferry, and Drayden Taylor of Kellogg round out this all North Idaho list. Who stands out other than Bonner's Ferry characters? Because we've seemingly talked a ton about them.
Yeah, I mean Tyler Engelson, his ability to like stop and shoot that three is super impressive, and he also sees the floor really well. Definitely a super high basketball IQ. Excited to see where he ends up playing next year. Drayden Taylor was really fun to watch for Kellogg, and he's he's gonna be another one to watch next year, and um, he can do it all as well. I mean, he shoots from the perimeter and goes to work down low, and I gotta say, he's got the best hair in the CIL. He's a great player.
Yeah, and I like Nate Stiefel from Priest River was another
Oh
reason
yeah,
that Priest River had the success that they did this year, and did a great job for that Spartan team. They were a fun team to watch too. I mean, they had games where they could get out and score. They also had, it was unfortunate they had the propensity at times to kind of go cold. When they were hot, they were hotter than a pistol. But unfortunately, Orfino nipped them. It would have been interesting to see that Priest River group and how that type of play would translate at the state tournament. But Orfino earned their way in and ended up getting that bid from the CIL. So as Max in the comments says, I want Bonner's Ferry versus Preston. I agree. He's on our Facebook page. Yeah, Bonner's Ferry Preston would be a insanely fun game to watch. I got to watch a little bit of that Preston high. Not Highland. I'm thinking of Hillcrest. Preston Hillcrest championship game in the 5A was a ton of fun. That Preston team, they could climb the ladder, and seemingly it was like Dunk City. It was like watching Florida Gulf Coast from the early 2010s. The way they play. So awesome job by these 4A, 3A players, and a great season from teams up north. Congratulations to the young men that made the list. So let's go to our 2A, 1A list and round this thing out, and then we'll get on out of here. So our 2A, 1A player of the year, David Clute from Kamei. He's going to be going to College of Idaho next year, playing basketball down there for the Yotes. And then our coach of the year, Steve Kirkland of Kendrick, started the season. I think they were 7-7 to start the year. You look at what Kendrick had scheduled on the front end. They were without their best player. Nathan Twite was not in the lineup this year. He got hurt in football, and they still were able to win a state championship with just great unselfish team play. I mean, that was a group that they just played together, and it was seemingly, guys fighting for who would take over on any given night. And Coach Kirkland did a great job with that group, with the Tigers. 3 state championship games in 3 consecutive years. Winning 2 of them. I mean, going up a classification and winning a state title is very impressive for that group. Our all North Idaho team, Seamus Wilson of Logos, Raleigh Rotsender of Kendrick, Tyson Charlie from Lakeside, Ben Connolly, Coeur de Christ, Hala Pion from Lakeside, Julian Davis from Wallace, Maddox Kirkland from Kendrick, Jaden Crow from Kamei, Owen Howard from Clark Fork, and Everett Lovell of Potlatch. I would take this team and play any one of those other groups. Like, this is a phenomenal group of basketball players.
Yeah. Owen Howard's a junior for the Wampus Cats, and I just did the calculations yesterday for the today's all league results in the paper, and 14.8 points, 13.7 rebounds, and 2.9 blocks a game. So
Yep. That's why he's on this list. I mean, that was bananas numbers. He's a rebound machine. Didn't he have a game where he had 20 boards in one game this year?
Yeah, he had 3. So he had 22 against Immaculate Conception Academy, and he did have one 20-20 performance. He had 25 points and 20 rebounds against Kootenai. I believe he had 5 blocks in that game as well.
Yeah, just an unbelievable season for the Wampus Cat. Everett Lovell, Potlatch obviously didn't make the state tournament this year, but a phenomenal player for them. And, everybody talks about Tyson Charlie from Lakeside. Hala Pion is a baller. I mean, he can shoot the lights out. And there was no way I was leaving him off this list.
Yeah, he had a really good tournament, really good state tournament, and he's a heck of a player. Also got to shout out Seamus Wilson. I mean, he's a player to look at, beyond high school. He's going to be playing somewhere, I'm sure.
I mean, he was a phenomenal football player, and he was probably even better on the basketball court this year. Had a 50-point game for the Knights this year. You look at guys on this list of how many players we had in North Idaho, and it was out of District 1 and 2 in the state of Idaho, I should say. Most of the 50-point games came from up north. It was bananas. I think we had, 4 50-point games this year from players in North Idaho is unbelievable.
I think I can. If Seamus had one, and then Tyler Engelson, Asher Williams, and then Ben Connolly had a 50-pointer.
And then a kid from Kootenai, I think, had one as well.
Yeah. Holy moly. Chris Moore.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but man, like, I mean, you talk about success that the North had this year, state champions from Kendrick. Just a great season, runner-up with Cami, fourth finish. I mean, you lose in the third place game for Lakeside. 2A basketball is owned by the North right now, and just a great job from these young men. So the same game, Chris Moore and Ben Connolly each went for over 50 in the same game against each other. That's what it was. Yeah, Brandon said in the comments.
I remember reading that. That was crazy.
Yeah, Chris Moore and Ben. I mean, there's some phenomenal accomplishments for these players and teams, and rounds out our season of basketball and wrestling. So congratulations to all of our North Idaho athletes. As that zoomed in really close. But yeah, I mean, Max, I thank you for joining us this week on the North Idaho Prepcast. We look forward to being back next week. We're going to break down spring sports coming up with Brandon and I, and Max. We want to bring you on again because you are our insider. I mean, we lean on you a whole lot with information, especially in District 1. You are our guru of sorts, and you do such a great job with the Bonner County Daily Bee and the Bonners Ferry Herald. So, I just want to say, to you, I mean, I know all the hours people don't really realize, people are quick to complain about newspapers. But, you do such a great job just being consistent and getting the kids out there and getting the publications. I mean, the notoriety is worthwhile, and you're not like one sport dependent. You try to cover them all, and you do a great job. So hats off to you, and thank you for doing what you do in the industry.
Yeah, thanks for the kind words. Appreciate it. Would definitely love to come on again, and anytime, just give me a call, send me a text. I'll be on. I always have tons of information to share. I even do the college athletes here. Got about over 80 between Bonner and Boundary County. So I'm following a little bit of everything here. Fun to keep up with everything. That's what makes the job fun.
That would be an awesome show to do in the off season, is to bring you on and we just roll through who's playing in college, where they're at, how they're doing. Because we do have so many phenomenal athletes. I think I was flipping through the channels and saw a Mountain West Conference game for the tournament for the girls, and I got to see Simmons playing out on the floor for Wyoming. I mean, there's so many of our athletes that are out there from North Idaho playing at the next level. I mean, I think of Avery Waddington's playing tonight for the Big Sky Championship with the Montana Grizzlies, and that it's awesome to see so many of these kids go on and go to the next level. And we've got a number of these guys and girls that were on this list that are going to be playing at the next level, and we're going to have to keep our eyes and ears to following them and moving forward.
Yeah.
Another comment from Sean Kane says, "You do a great job, Max. Thanks for the love. Love the tennis stuff. Wink, wink." And I think he's referring to your coverage of Sandpoint's tennis team.
Yeah. No, they're I'm about to call Kent Anderson this week to do the spring sports preview. He's about 20 years there at Sandpoint High, so always
He's a great guy too. He's an awesome dude.
Yeah. Watch out for both the girls and boys this year at state for Sandpoint.
Yeah, Sean's gonna have his hands full with that Century team.
That's right.
So this has been the North Idaho Prepcast. I'm Ryan Scaggs, joined by Max Oswald of the Bonner County Daily Bee this week. We broke down all North Idaho teams in the state tournaments. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully we'll be back with Brandon next week. Unless you didn't like him, then you can just request Max and I show up from now on. So until then, we'll see you next week. You can always listen to us after the show is over on our Facebook channel, on IdahoSports.com, on our YouTube page, or you can go to the X account and follow. And also going over to our Instagram account if you haven't seen. Some of the reels from state were unbelievable. And I just want to give a shout out to the other broadcasters with Idaho Sports and with Paul, putting on, in my opinion, second to none, the product that we did for state. That's kind of patting ourselves on the back. But I think that our coverage of the state tournaments was just unbelievable. So congratulations to all the other broadcasters and to Brandon and Paul for all their hard work behind the scenes.
Yeah, thanks for all you do. Just want to say, the NFHS broadcasts were pretty good, but the your guys' live streams of the games were, in my opinion, they were better. So they were fun to listen to. was sitting there every free moment I got. I would turn it on my phone while I was working, listen to all these different games. Lots of information and knowledge goes into that stuff.
Yeah. So, and we appreciate all of our sports guys, whether it's you up north or, Jason and Mark here in Coeur d'Alene, and all of our guys down in Lewiston as well. The print media guys need some love too, because there's a ton of hours that go into all that stuff. So hats off to you guys. So thanks for joining us this week. We'll be back with you next week as we break down spring sports. You've been listening to the North Idaho Prepcast here on IdahoSports.com.